Our sails, loftily unfurled like clouds, day and night continued their course as a star, traversing those savage waves as if we were treading a public thoroughfare. These were the writings of Admiral Zheng He of his grand voyages during the Ming Dynasty. In 1405, the admiral set sail to the Indian Ocean and the Southeast Asian archipelago with China's first world armada under the orders of the Yongle Emperor. The fleet claimed to have the largest ships in the world then, and for the next 3 decades, Nanjing would become the shipbuilding capital of the world's greatest maritime power. Zheng He was born as Ma He from a Muslim family in today's Yunnan province in 1371. The Ming armies captured him and turned him into a eunuch. He served Zhu Di, the Yongle Emperor. An allegiance was formed as Ma demonstrated his loyalty. In 1404, the Yongle Emperor bestowed onto Ma the name Zheng, after leading a battle near a reservoir called Zhenglun Pa. The Emperor would launch Zheng He's ships. Frugal was not in his vocabulary. 7 voyages were launched from 1405 to 1433. 300 ships, around 62 acted as treasure ships. All were 5 times bigger than any wooden vessel around the world then, 10 times the capacity, with the whole armada carrying up to 27 to 28,000 men. The biggest one stretched to over 130 meters, beams at 50 meters. One had 69 masts standing up to 60 meters tall. Columbus and da Gama's pioneering voyages only had 3 or 4 ships at the end of the 15th century, with the longest only stretching up to 20 meters. Their capacity barely exceeded 1/20th of a Ming treasure ship. The first ships to reach a length of 126 meters were 19th century steamers. Navigators, explorers, sailors, doctors, workers, soldiers, scholars, and translators traveled the world with Admiral Zheng He. The armada journeyed from the Yangtze to Champa, now southern Vietnam, Java, Malacca, Sumatra, Sri Lanka, then Calicut in South India. They stopped in Borneo, the Philippines, Andamans, Maldives, Laccadives, Bengal, and Thailand. The armada also reached Hormuz in the Persian Gulf, Jafar and Aden in Arabia, the Somali coast in Africa, from Mecca to Malindi, now Kenya. It is even possible that the armada reached the Cape of Good Hope 72 years before Columbus, circumnavigating the globe a century before Magellan. Admiral Zheng He had the entire Indian Ocean on his hands. Famous explorers such as Marco Polo and Ibn Battuta witnessed and marveled at the majesty of these Chinese ships. Zheng He's route was nothing new. His fleet followed traditional routes drawn at least since the Han Dynasty. It was the grandiosity of his armada which proved novel. But what launched the voyage? The Yongle Emperor overthrew his nephew Zhu Yinwen, the Zhenwen Emperor, during the Jingnan Rebellion, a 3-year civil war for succession. A burnt corpse was presented, but it was speculated that the Zhenwen Emperor fled to Southeast Asia. Admiral Zheng was ordered to lead the search, but the Zhenwen Emperor most likely died in the fire. There were no conquests nor colonies. Kublai Khan already committed those mistakes. The great voyages were more an affirmation of ascendancy rather than an expansion to achieve ascendancy. The Yongle Emperor gifted silk, silver, paper money, investiture, trade treaties. In return were tributes ranging from precious metals like jade to animals exotic to China such as giraffes and zebras. Armies generally served as exhibitions of dominance. Force was rarely inflicted. States became tributaries. The Ming Dynasty waved the Chinese flag without planting it. Admiral Zheng wrote, "When we arrived at the foreign countries, barbarian kings who resisted transformation and were not respectful, we captured alive, and bandit soldiers who looted and plundered recklessly, we exterminated." For the Europeans, exploration led to trade and trade led to an empire. For the Chinese, it was the other way around. China was already a great empire. Informal trade already existed long before Zheng He. There was already some influence on the Strait of Malacca to Champa. But then the voyages stopped. The Yongle Emperor died in 1424. His successor briefly stopped the voyages, but then his successor resumed it, the 7th and last voyage. The admiral most likely died here. His tomb in China is empty. The Neo-Confucian ministers who were for isolationism clashed with the court eunuchs who were for expansionism. The Ha Jing Edict or Sea-ban, written on the ancestral injunctions of the Hanwu Emperor, the founder of the Ming Dynasty, long preceded Zheng. The Yongle Emperor ignored this order, but after Zheng He, the ban was upheld again. Construction of seafaring ships was forbidden. Historians suppressed the admiral's achievements in the official accounts. Only in 1567 was the ban lifted as expanding maritime trade influenced China to participate. The Yuan Mongols were also coming in from the north. Beijing was inaugurated as a new capital. It was in the north. Mongols from east to west sought to revive the empire of Genghis Khan. Money spent on seas was needed more on land. China funneled its funds to fortifications, but its maintenance proved futile. A less expensive yet more stable frontier was demanded. The 16th century followed with the Mongols forging alliances with the Tibetans. The Ming Empire fought against incessant rebellions. New explorers from different countries took over maritime trade. Walls did not rise when they needed to rise, while ships did not sail when they needed to sail. The Hanwu Emperor also ordered not to invade Annam in Vietnam. Annam's Tran dynasty had tributary relations with the Ming dynasty since 1369. Conflict of successions involving Ho Kui Li, who usurped the Tran dynasty in the early 15th century, forced the Ming dynasty to take over Annam. But Vietnamese resistance was firm. By 1427, fate was reversed and the Ming was pushed out. Another justification for the expensive voyages weakened with the defeat. In the 1530s, Vietnam went on to invade Champa, the Ming support base and ally in the south. The rationale for the expenses on the voyages was exhausted as Neo-Confucian arguments against expansionism rose, as money depleted from moving the capital Beijing, as Vietnam successfully rebelled, and as the Mongols threatened the north. The construction of the Forbidden City and the revival of the Grand Canal of the spring and autumn period worn out the empire's resources. The tributes also needed to be restricted. China closed off more and more. Within a century, Europeans would dominate sea trade and build empires across the globe. In 1557, during the decline of Ming, Macau, the first European colony in the region, was founded. China did not participate in the age of colonialism as it transitioned to isolationism. Competition must have driven the Europeans at a time when its countries were perpetually fighting one another. Perhaps the Chinese already had the sentiment of all under heaven, that China was the center of the world and its emperor was the son of heaven. They had nothing to prove, but they had to maintain what they have proved. 600 years later, competition is driving the entire world. 11 days before the 21st century, Macau returned to the Middle Kingdom. The sleeping giant has turned to the Red Dragon. The year 2013 was China's year of reclamation. More islands were seized in the South China Sea. The Chinese now have the greatest naval fleet, at least in quantity. New battles are being fought in the name of maritime trade, and new rivals are now playing the game of world domination.